What's up? It's Dynas Demir shooting another video. Um, and this video is to urge Africans to stay in Africa. And the reason why I say that is I'm running into too many Africans here in America that are regretting even coming to America from Africa. And usually the main complaint is, oh, I thought there was going to be a lot of opportunity here and it's not. Or, Americans are so stressed out. I don't understand why. And, the question I always have for them, or the question I always ask them is, why did you come to America in the first place? And so, in Africa, obviously they have access to American entertainment and American media and American TV. And so, they watch these TV shows over here in America and they want to go to New York and LA because they think it's the land of milk and honey, or they think America's the land of milk and honey in general. And again, like my previous video on, screw Europe, travel to Africa, for some reason, like I said, when African Americans, when they travel abroad to Europe, they think they're immune, from racism. Even though when they go to these countries, the black people in these countries in Europe will tell you that there's racism in this country. I think Africans think the same thing. They think that they could come to America and be immune from racism when America's probably, in fact, America is the most racist country on this planet. But for some reason, Africans think they could come to America and not face racism. So that's another reason why Africans say they regret coming to America is because of the racism. They feel as if they're treated better in Europe than they are in America. And so, again, the question is, why did you come to America in the first place? And it's always the same story. Like when I run into Africans here in America, they're highly educated, but they're like security guards or they work at fast food restaurants. So I'm like, so you came to America to get your education or to use your education, and you're a security guard or you're working at a fast food restaurant. You're better off in Africa. And then a lot of Africans I talk to, they're in the weirdest places in America. It's like, where do you live? I live in Bismarck, North Dakota. Like, how did you end up there? Out of all the places in America that you could go to from Africa, you're in Bismarck, North Dakota. Like, North Dakota. I don't understand how, like I said, Africans, they just end up in the weirdest and worst places in America for black people. That's where they end up. And so I know we speak a lot on, Africa is the future. So how can Africa be the future if the Africans are leaving Africa instead of staying in Africa to help build Africa? And, a common complaint about Africa is the leadership is poor, which I agree. And then, there's no opportunities in Africa, which I disagree. Because every time I come to Africa or go to Africa, I've never met a poor Indian or a poor Chinese person in Africa. When I'm in Tanzania, Kenya, or South Africa, I've never met a poor Indian. Never. Indians are in Africa balling. But I meet poor Africans, but I won't meet a poor Indian. But and also when I'm in West Africa, like in Senegal and Mali, I've never met a poor Chinese person. I've met poor Africans, but I never met a poor Chinese person. That's why I'm not buying the lack of opportunity argument is the reason why you left Africa. Like I'm not buying it's because of lack of opportunity. Because again, I've never met a poor Chinese person or a poor Indian in Africa. Never. Just poor Africans or black Africans, but not poor Chinese or Indians. So again, Africans stay in Africa because it's just too often that I'm running into Africans that are highly educated, that are security guards, and that are working at fast food restaurants. And then also too, we speak of education. At one time, Africa was the center of education on the planet. Everybody came to Egypt and everybody came to Timbuktu. So we have to rebuild. We have to rebuild Timbuktu and Egypt in Africa. Like we have to make Africa the place where everybody wants to come to learn. Instead of going to Oxford and Harvard and Yale, we have to build our own, I guess, build our own Ivy League schools in Africa. And we can do it. We've done it before. Again, Timbuktu in Egypt is where everybody across the planet came to learn. Those are the learning centers on the planet, the main ones, Timbuktu and Egypt. So again, Africans, stay in Africa. Don't come to America. I know you think America is a great place. I know you think America is a land of milk and honey, but everything you need to be great. I mean, Africa is the richest place on the planet when it comes to natural resources. Again, it's just the only issue is poor leadership, poor government, and people, or I'll call them cultural vultures, people who could care less about Africans coming into Africa and exploiting Africa. And again, poor leadership is causing that. So, one of the what we have to do is put an end to this poor leadership, change leadership, take back control of African governments because they are doing a poor job. And again, kick out all the cultural vultures that are exploiting Africa for its natural resources, but the African people are not benefiting from these natural resources. So again, Africans, stay in Africa. Africa is the future, so we have to build that future in Africa. Subscribe to my page. Go to my website, www.searchforahuru.com. If you want to leave a comment. I answer back. Let's have the dialogue. Let's open it up. This is your boy, Dynasty Mir. I'm out. I'm going to end it on this. Whatever opportunity you see in Europe and whatever opportunity you see in America, those same opportunities are also available in Africa. And as I mentioned before, if Africa is the future, if Africans continue to leave Africa, the question becomes the future for who or whom. So again, reconsider leaving Africa for Europe and leaving Africa for America, and stay in Africa and rebuild Africa, because Africa is the future. I'm out.